he made $736,000 his last month. And Eric said, Levi, I want you to give it all up and start all over with me. At age 55, he gave it all up and started all over here. Because he said, relationships are wealth to me, Eric Olson. Isn't that an amazing story? This man right here. And you know why he was making that much money? Because he told me. He said, Papa, all I want people to do is start saving for their future, because if they don't save for their future, they will have no future. And that was his crusade. And the people could tell after about 5 minutes, he wasn't there trying to make money. He was trying to save that family. And that's why when you have that kind of a crusader's heart, you can do really well here. And you know, you heard what Marcel said about me. Even white, did he say even white people can be successful? Well, that's elder abuse, because I'm 74 years old, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm kidding. That's how close all of us are. I mean, imagine this. There's over 100 people that gave up between $500,000 a year and $7 million a year to leave what we all worked hard for to start all over with Eric. Why? Because we all believe in Eric Olson. I think when you heard Eric Olson get up here and talk, you realize, and this is why all these insurance companies are believing in us, because they know Eric Olson's track record. And when you hear this great introduction of me, I want you to remember something. Don't judge a person by their fruit. That's a mistake. Go back and find out their root. See, everyone that came up here is now very successful, right? But they didn't start out that way. Guess where I spent my time before I got in this industry? I was a postal worker in Milwaukee, working third shift for 15 years. Isn't that a great preparation to be the agency chairman of the fastest growing financial company in the world? But you know what? One day, I saw an article about this guy named Art Williams, and it said that you could work for his company on a spare time basis doing referrals. So I sent the letter. Dear Mr. Williams, please send me information on your company. And a day later, after this guy got the letter, the number one guy in the company called my home and sent me 2 plane tickets. And you know, he had a 38,000 square foot house in Atlanta. I was living in a 700 square foot house. And I was just walking around like this, like, I can't believe I'm here. And then he said to me, tomorrow we're going to meet the founder. And I was like, I really don't have to meet anybody else. And then I got to meet Art Williams. And I don't know how to explain it. You know, you got to remember, I was a postal worker. My wife was a brewery worker. We were 2 of the biggest blue-collar people you ever met. And when Art Williams shook my hand, I felt electricity go through me. I didn't know exactly what it meant back then. But then we got started in the business, and I sucked. I mean, I couldn't sell anything to anybody. Because I was 1,000 miles away from my mentor. We didn't have Zoom back then. And I remember one day, I just quit. It was just, I couldn't handle rejection. See, a lot of people have negative emotions. They're called fear, they're called worry, they're called doubt. I had all those. So I thought that's the way I am. And then one day I just quit. And I've been married to Tina for 50 years, but I remember that day that I quit. Tina came home from the brewery at 11:30 at night, and then she'd wake me up and I'd go to work. And she came home and I was on the couch and I was really discouraged. And she said, what's the matter? I said, honey, I'm sorry, but I'm quitting. I cannot do this anymore. I was meant to be a postal worker. And she said, look at me. And she said, do you understand that when I met you, you had a light in your eye, and that's why I married you? And then being in that government job all those years, you lost that light in your eye, and when you got in this business, I saw that light come back in your eye. And she said, I don't care if you don't make a dime. I don't want you to give up, because I believe you. Why am I getting so emotional? I'm a long time ago. But my point is this. If my wife didn't believe in me more than I believed in myself, I wouldn't be standing up here today. So I'm saying that to you because a lot of you have spouses. I'm asking you to believe in those spouses. Are they perfect? I know they're not. You could probably show me a list of things. And you know what, your children? Believe in those children. They might be messing up right now. But I'm going to tell you something. I found out the power of belief, and then I turned around and I've been believing in people my whole rest of my career. And I'm saying to you, if you're the kind of person that believes in yourself, you need to get in our company. I'll guarantee you in your first week you'll learn more than you've learned in a long time. And if you don't believe in yourself, you could be like me. You could learn how to believe in yourself. And so then as people started believing in me, they started to pull out the gifts that were in me that I didn't know I had. Is that making sense to anybody? See, we're not born this way. We're born perfect, and then we're messed up by human beings around. It's a true story. We pick up stuff from our family members, and that's why I pick all these things up. My brothers always made fun of me because I didn't get good grades in school. I wasn't as good as them in sports, so I kind of gave up in life and took a job in the post office. And so, then I ended up, then as I started to find out the real Greg Kapp, I became the MVP of our previous company. And our team helped over 1.7 million get a financial credit. And then Eric Olson came onto my team 23 years ago. And I watched this young man come in and go from 300,000 to $1 million, then to $2 million a year, to $5 million a year, to $8 million a year. And I watched him pass up everybody. And, I can tell you all about his business accolades. He was making $13.5 million the last year we were at the other company. But when I got COVID back in 1920, I was living up in Celebration, Florida. I was so delirious. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And my wife was in a room next to me. I didn't know she was in the hospital. And Eric Olson, while he was building his business, called my daughter every day. He said, "Is your mom and dad coming home today?" She said, "No." He said, "Do they need anything? Do they need money? Do they have their trust set up? Do they have their will?" She said, "Yes, they're taken care of." He said, "Just let them know that I'm praying for them every day." I didn't know he was doing that. Well, then when I got to be in my mid-60s, I was promised at the other company that, "Greg Kapp, you know what, you deserve your override. No one's ever going to touch your money." And I was making a couple million a year, and then a new president took over. And he said, "You know what, Kapp? I don't care about the promises you were made before. You're going to have to go back to work." And I just said, I always say, "Okay, God, I'll forgive these people, but I'm getting it back somehow." Right? That's what I always say. And so then Eric Olson found out about it, and he went to the president of the company and said, "You can't do this to Greg Kapp. I've seen this man pray over his company. I've seen him give all of his energy to his company. And if you do this to Greg Kapp and make him go back in the field at age 68, then there's going to be a lot of people upset with you." He said, "Eric Olson, go back to work. This is none of your business." And Eric told me that day was the day it triggered in him that he was going to start a new company because of the way they treated me. Because they had promised me ownership, but they weren't going to give it to me. They promised Eric ownership. So I want you to know this was founded on a great purpose. That Eric Olson started this company because he wants the people to have ownership. And I know that might be hard for you to believe because you've made a lot of promises in your life. But I'm telling you, this man he's only 43 years old. Every insurance company in America knows who he is. They all know who we are. And if you have the opportunity to come to this company, it's $199. When you get to be this old, quit trying to convince people and stuff. It's $199 to join their company. That's a couple tanks of gas. And I'm saying to you, if you listen to all this today and you can't make that decision, then I would tell you to make that decision. And to prove me wrong, come in and call me and tell me after 30 days, "Greg Kapp, you lied to us at that meeting." And whether you join or you don't join, it doesn't affect me at all. But I feel bad for you and I feel bad for your children because I think about where my children would be today and my grandchildren if I would have stayed at the post office. So that's why we're here today. Now I'm going to introduce you to, guess what, your last speaker's coming up. And man, you better put your seatbelts on. You better put your seatbelts on because when this speaker comes on stage, I met this guy when he's 19 years old. He spoke broken English. His family immigrated.